The following portion of Daytime is sponsored by Older Lundy, Koch and Martino.
When a marriage is headed for divorce, there are legal topics involving finances that will have to be addressed with an attorney. And joining us now to discuss the recent changes to Florida alimony law is Kim Maxwell. She is board-certified marital and family law attorney at Older Lundy. Kim, welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Good to have you here. So I understand there have been a lot of changes to our Florida alimony law. For starters, how did these changes impact somebody whose divorce is already finalized?
So that's pretty much the question of the month, right? So if your case was finalized prior to July 1st of 2023, then the new law won't have any significant impact and it will not apply retroactively to your final judgment if you are a payor of alimony or you're a recipient of alimony. So the new law is only going to apply to initial divorce proceedings that were pending as of July 1st, or of course those that may have been filed after July 1st.
Let's talk about some of the specifics. When it comes to the length of alimony, how is that determined, and are there any special circumstances that could extend the length?
Of course. So one of the biggest changes in the new statute is that permanent periodic alimony has been dissolved. And so now we have 3 different periods of time, and the legislature has set forth parameters for the court to determine the length of the alimony. So if you are in what's called a short-term marriage, which is between 0 and 10 years, the maximum amount of alimony and duration would be 50% of the length of your marriage. If you are between 10 and 20 years, then the court could order up to 60% of the length of your marriage, and any amount after 20 years would be capped at 75% of the length of the marriage, and that would be for the duration of the alimony itself. And then exceptional circumstances do exist, of course, where you could ask the court to go beyond those parameters, and those would typically be if one of the parties to the case has any mental or physical disabilities, or potentially if they are a caregiver for a minor or adult child that is also potentially disabled.
What about the actual amount that is paid? What are the considerations that the court evaluates to determine it?
Well, there are several factors that the court considers, and those are largely the same in the new statute as they were previously. But what the court does have to consider now are 2 different guidelines for the amount, and it's going to be the lesser of 2 different things. So the first would be the actual needs and necessities of the spouse receiving or asking for alimony, or if the court has to calculate the net incomes of the parties, what is the difference in those net incomes, and then applies 35% to the difference of those net incomes. And whichever of the 2 is lower is the amount that the court would order in alimony under the new statute.
So for someone who's either paying or receiving alimony, are there any other portions of the new law that would affect them?
There are. So when it comes to modification of existing alimony obligations, the new law does codify some prior law and specifies it. And those are related specifically to when a payor spouse is retiring. Obviously, everybody's entitled to retire at a reasonable age. And so if you are retiring, you can petition the court to reduce or terminate your alimony obligation. Also, if the spouse who's receiving alimony is entered into what we refer to as a supportive relationship, the new law has clarified some of the standards and the definition of a supportive relationship, such that if they're receiving support or they have another member in their household that's contributing to their expenses, then you can petition to modify the alimony downward or potentially terminate it there as well.
So informative. Kim, thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
And if you'd like more information, you can visit olderlundylaw.com or call 813-254-8998. Daytime will be right back.
The preceding portion of Daytime was sponsored by Older Lundy, Koch and Martino.